लाल रंग इसका अपार,
तीखा कम है फिर भी स्वाद,
बेमिसाल बेमिसाल MDH कश्मीरी,
MDH Kashmiri.
MDH.
Hi there, welcome back to your favorite deep dive show in which we focus on stories contemporary and consequential for India. This week we were spoilt for a choice. From the Waqf bill in Parliament to Muhammad Yunus throwing a Northeast challenge to India, from the Trump tariff war that has nuked the markets to the issue of conversions in Punjab coming under focus after conviction of Pastor Bajinder Singh, and some more. With an information overload on the Trump's tariff tantrums, I thought I should give it a pass. For now, would only wager that all roads to hell are paved with good intentions. So I picked three stories, two domestic and one international. First up, India and China completed 75 years of their diplomatic relations this week. Xi Jinping called for an elephant-dragon tango. I take a hard look. Should we lower our guard and dance, or still read the poker face Xi a little more? Second, is Naxalism on its deathbed in India? The Union Home Minister officially reduced the footprint of the left-wing extremism menace to just 6 districts of the country. From a dozen states that the Red Terror used to rule till a decade ago, we take a look. And finally, in the international segment, France's strongest right-wing leader, Marine Le Pen, has been banned from electoral politics following her conviction in a corruption case. But there's a larger pattern. Europe is clinically going after its right wing. What's the freedom and democracy index of the self-righteous Europe? We explore. Let's get going.
方愿同印方一道努力，在两国领导人的战略引领下，坚持从战略高度和长远角度看待和处理中印关系，以两国建交75周年为契机，增进双方战略互信，加强各领域交流合作，深化在重大国际事务当中的沟通与协调，共同维护中印边境地区的和平安宁，推动中印关系沿着健康稳定的轨道向前发展。
President Xi Jinping sent an unusually flowery communication to President Draupadi Murmu seeking an elephant-dragon tango between India and China. The occasion was the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between the two nations since 1950. India became independent in 1947, China in 1948, which means both sides waited for a couple of years before connecting officially and setting up embassies in each other's capitals. Let's put it like this. The Nehru government was not nimble-footed enough to swing between the Kuomintang government of General Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese Communist Party led by Mao Zedong. That took a couple of years to be sorted, hence 1950 as the start date. What began as a glitch widened into a gorge with the border talks over Tibet and the escape of the Dalai Lama, ultimately leading to the 1962 war. Since then, but for sporadic military clashes and standoffs, the one of 1967 at Nathula and in 1986-87 at Sumdorongchu Valley, India-China maintained cold peace, leading to many border agreements and understandings. In 1993, 1996, 2005, 2012, and 2013. Look at the start and the end dates of these agreements. They are significant markers of geopolitical and geoeconomic trajectories of the two nations. At the turn of the decade of the 1980s, China was still in hibernation. Its WTO entry was still a decade away. Both India and China had similar population and economic size, leading to a strategic equilibrium. This helped both sides sign those agreements. The elephant and the dragon could do a tango on a range of issues from the United Nations to the World Trade Organization, and later from the BRICS to the SCO. Come to 2013, India was unstable, ridden by negative perceptions about the government in Delhi, almost on the verge of getting knocked out of the BRICS. But by 2013, China had made big leaps. It was the year when China crossed the $10 trillion mark for its economy, And 2013 also saw a generational shift with the advent of Xi Jinping. By 2013, America, under second term of President Obama, was fancying a China pivot with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Taken together, the geostrategic, geopolitical, and geoeconomic environment provided Xi with that extra swagger and heft. Look at the dates again. 2013 is when Xi gave the first glimpse of his military mind on India with the Dipsang adventure. He followed it up with Chumar in 2014. Doklam happened in 2017, and by 2020, the escalation reached Galwan, which put the India-China relations into a deep freeze. The moves on India border have been one of the many strategic shifts made by Xi Jinping on the back of a firing Chinese economy. Military moves on Taiwan, tightening of direct control on Xinjiang, and taking over of the sinews of global supply chains through the Belt and Road Initiative being other examples. The Chinese president had been setting up a chessboard that would have turned China into the Middle Kingdom that Beijing has fancied itself to be since the ancient times. Till COVID, that is. The pandemic put paid to those ambitions. The world pivoted against China, both mentally and materially, leading to shifts that have sputtered the Chinese economic engine. The Trump tariff war has put a spoke on any hopes of an easy rebound. This week only, Xi has made some unprecedented changes in the CCP leadership structure. This week also saw a trial run of an economic blockade of Taiwan by the PLA joint forces. A fortnight back, we had reappearance of Jack Ma of Alibaba, with Xi using that to emphasize that he was toning down his private sector witch hunt. The coming week, Xi is making his first trip abroad this year to his immediate neighborhood in Southeast Asia, visiting Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. Vietnam is important because the Liberation Day tariffs of Trump have targeted Hanoi even more than China, given the proxy of Chinese manufacturing that it had become. So this is the backdrop in which we have to see this saccharine-loaded outreach of the dragon seeking a tango with the elephant. The sugar and honey tone is to buy peace as she engages with more important battles at hand. On our side, India too has traveled a long distance. 1. Post-Galwan and the Ladakh standoff, we have showed the Chinese generals that they can be checkmated. 2. The Trump-Modi equation is more durable than the Biden-Frost and would weigh on Xi's mind. 3. The India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, as also the Supply Chain Resilience Initiative of the Quad, are credible threats to Chinese dominance of global logistics and supply chains. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri was the chief guest at the Chinese embassy event to mark the occasion. While he cut a cake along with Chinese Ambassador Xu Fihong, his address was loaded with caution. Listen in.
Areas is critical for the smooth development of our overall bilateral relations. And it is on the basis of this fundamental understanding, which was shared in the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping in Kazan, that both of us are now working together to chart a roadmap for our bilateral relations to return to a stable, predictable, and amicable path.
Misri concluded by saying that the path forward may be a difficult one, but one that we are prepared for. There's a reason for caution. 1. The lessons of the recent past. 2. The reopening of the trade does not necessarily mean the lopsided trade balance is getting addressed anytime soon. 3. While the troops have pulled back from eyeball-to-eyeball positions in Ladakh, they are not back to their barracks yet. No time yet for a tango. Moving on.
सबसे पहले एक बात इस सदन में जिम्मेदारी के साथ बताना चाहता हूं, 21 मार्च 2026 को इस देश से नक्सलवाद समाप्त। मैं जो बोल रहा हूं इसके पीछे नरेंद्र मोदी सरकार के 10 साल का परिश्रम।
In a big fillip to India's internal security, Home Minister Amit Shah informed this week that only 6 districts are left in the country where Naxalism or violent left-wing extremism, LWE, remains in some strength. There too it is on its deathbed and shall be mopped up by March 2026. The 6 districts, Bijapur, Kanker, Narayanpur and Sukma in Chhattisgarh, West Singhbhum in Jharkhand and Gadchiroli in Maharashtra are the only ones where security forces continue their operations to flush the last of the anti-state radicals. There's an operation all out going on in these districts, and the graphics give you an idea of the scale or intensity of the operation. The figures are for Chhattisgarh alone. Do you see a pattern? The spike in 2024 is attributed to the coming of the BJP government in Raipur. The state and the centre have aligned since then to provide clear political guidance to the security forces, particularly the state police and its special anti-Naxal division called the District Reserve Guard, DRG, to flush out the last of the radicals. Consisting of surrendered Naxals, the forces good with ground-level human intelligence leading to better results. The carrot and stick policy has worked. This week saw an operation in Bijapur which killed 17 Naxals, including a key operative who was part of the 2013 Dariba Ghati massacre of the then Congress leadership. Next day, 50 plus of their accomplices surrendered before the district police, thus clearing an important pocket of active, violent, radical elements. What has changed is nimble-footed approach to security operations, more delegation to operational commanders, swiftness of decision-making, doggedness to take the operations to logical conclusion. Shah has himself called it a ruthless pursuit of Naxals and relentless approach towards development. Massive infrastructure push, roads, mobile towers, security camps, coupled with an empowered local police, have all translated into better human intelligence gathering, resulting in better target setting and hence better outcomes of security operations. Government has worked on more ration shops, more schools, more dispensaries in far-flung areas to counter Maoist propaganda of an exploitative, unresponsive state. Focused monitoring of welfare schemes and their outcomes have made larger populace less receptive to the grievance-peddling Naxal narrative. Apart from the 6 most affected districts, there are about a dozen more with lesser intensity of Naxal activity where security forces are carrying out mop-up operations. When the Modi government took over in 2014, the LWE affected districts stood at over 100. The number is down to 18 districts now. In 2010, 1936 LWE incidents were reported. That number is down to 374 in 2024. While 1,000 plus lives were lost in 2010, the number tapered off to 150 deaths last year. The Modi government, of course, has gone into this with a whole-of-government approach. Speaking at the Republic Plenary Summit earlier this month, Prime Minister indicated towards the safe harbour ecosystem in urban centres, which nourishes the violent ideology of these extremists on the ground in mostly tribal areas of the country, taking advantage of the gullible masses there. Last decade has seen systematic pursuit of that ecosystem, plugging their funding channels and exposing and putting known anti-national elements on trial. Bhima Koregaon case being the most representative of that pursuit. The massive documentation in the case exposed the innards of the Maoist mindset. With a strong belief in overthrowing democratic government through a violent revolution, one document, part of the Bhima Koregaon charge sheet, even mentioned details of an assassination bid on Prime Minister Modi. Listen in.
2018 में भीमा कोरेगांव हुआ। भीमा कोरेगांव में जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स निकले इनके लैपटॉप से, इनके जो एक्सचेंज थे, जो ये लोग मैसेजेस एक्सचेंज करते थे अलग अलग एप्स के थ्रू, तो उसमें 2017 का एक लेटर है जिसमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी को मारने की प्लानिंग है।
The gorilla in the jungles of Abujmand, the professor at a university campus, the television debater justifying acts of violence as angst of the subalterns, the five-star activist calling Naxals Gandhians with guns, and the Khan Market gang all formed a continuum with the same objective, that of compromising the territorial integrity and sovereignty of India. A centrifugal force working to break the nation. From the JNU of 2016 to the Jadavpur University campus recently, the Osmania University and the FTII, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and even some IITs, all have been part of that Tukre gang. That thankfully stands fully exposed, if not fully neutralized yet. But we are close. Moving on.
Il a sorti la bombe nucléaire. Et si il utilise une arme aussi puissante contre nous, c'est évidemment parce que nous sommes sur le point de gagner les élections.
It's a nuclear bomb aimed at my political death, said Marine Le Pen, France's right-wing leader of the National Rally Party, on Tuesday, a day after she was sentenced to 5 years in jail and banned for holding any public office for next 5 years, after being convicted in a decades-old corruption case. The purported crime involved Le Pen employing some of her party's office bearers in France at the expense of European Union funds when she was a member of the European Parliament in the 2004-2016 period. The verdict drew immediate, strong reactions from the conservative world. Donald Trump called it a witch hunt. Viktor Orban of Hungary posted on X, "I stand with Marine." Le Pen is not just any other politician. She's the first leader from the right in France who is close to becoming the president of the French Republic, or was till this week's verdict. Le Pen has single-handedly consolidated the position of her party as a credible right-wing alternative in French politics over decades, even throwing out her father in 2015 for his extreme views in her efforts to mainstream the national rally. Her efforts have translated into electoral gains, from little over 8% votes in 2004 to 10.18% in 2009 to 14% in 2014, to breaking through a glass ceiling in 2024 EU elections, securing 31% votes and becoming France's single largest party in Brussels, a feat no party had achieved since 1984. Her June 2024 EU victory forced Emmanuel Macron to declare a snap poll for the lower house of the French Parliament. And even there, Le Pen emerged as the winner in the first runoff, getting more votes than EU polls. Facing a real threat of a right-wing takeover, the traditional left-leaning French establishment realigned political forces to relegate Le Pen's party to third position in the second round, but not before turning Le Pen into a real force in the reckoning. She had been polling average of 35% in most opinion polls for the French presidency as a build-up to 2027 presidential elections. The Monday verdict comes in this backdrop. Not the first time that this has happened in Europe in the last few months. In fact, in November last year, Calin Georgescu, a pro-Russia politician, won a landslide in first round of general elections in Romania. Even before the last of the votes were counted, his election was countermanded by the country's constitutional court in Bucharest on the grounds that his campaign used digital platforms in a manner that it amounted to fraudulent use of technology. In effect, Georgescu's crime was that he used TikTok more efficiently than his political rivals. It did not end there. Like in the case of Marine Le Pen, the court in Bucharest ruled that Georgescu would not be allowed to participate in the runoff elections that are slated to take place in May. That's next month. Italy's Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini called it a Soviet-style Euro coup. J.D. Vance, that bugbear of European liberal leaders, called Georgescu's annulment a backsliding of democracy in Europe. In January, Thierry Breton, a former EU commissioner and someone who drafted the Digital Services Act, which was used by the Romanian court to eject Georgescu, threatened a repeat in Germany in case the far-right AfD party led by Alice Weidel won the elections. In an interview to a French network, Britain said EU had mechanisms to nullify a possible election victory of AfD, adding that what we did in Romania, we can do in Germany also. Elon Musk, having just finished an interview with Weidel on his platform X, joined an issue with Britain, calling him tyrant of Europe. Call it the ruling elites, call it the deep state, call it the really deep left establishment. From France to Romania to Germany, it knows when to strike and how to gerrymander verdicts. That leaves us with the question, is Europe truly democratic? The democratic activism that West shows, all the preachiness, is it compulsive or convenient? If a referendum is the most direct form of democratic exercise, what's Europe's record? Let's look at some history without passing any judgment. Back in the 1990s, Denmark voted against joining the EU as part of the Maastricht Treaty in June 1992. The European ruling elites did not like this vote against their consensus, and the Danes were made to vote again. This time, in May 1993, Denmark turned around and voted yes. Similarly, in the case of Ireland, when the Treaty of Nice had to be signed by the EU states in 2001 to account for the eastward expansion, the Irish rejected it in June of that year. But they were made to hold another referendum, and the Nice Treaty was approved with some tweaks of words here and there. Again, the EU elites not taking a no for an answer in the name of democracy. The saga continued. Ireland was made to hold 2 referendums in 2008, again for the Lisbon Treaty, which was meant to further strengthen the EU mechanisms over national governments. It gets better. France held a referendum in 2005 on whether to accept the EU constitution. It was defeated with a clear majority of 55% voting against it. The French political elites simply dumped the vote, changed leadership. PM Jean-Pierre Raffarin was replaced with Dominique de Villepin. Nicolas Sarkozy, a Euro hawk, was brought in as interior minister, and the Lisbon Treaty was just approved with a parliamentary vote, not bothering at all about a referendum this time. Ditto for the Netherlands. A referendum the Dutch held after 200 years was nullified because it did not suit the expected results. Clearly, democracy is good, but direct democracy is not. Obviously, because it loosens the control of the elites, which is absolutely fine, but then why be so preachy is the question. You can safely come to the conclusion that for Europe, democracy is a test in which, if you get the wrong answer, you have to simply vote twice, as this recent history proves. Thanks for watching.
आज दही बड़ा खाने का मन है। वाह क्या स्वाद! असली स्वाद तो MDH दही बड़ा रायता मसाले से ही आता है।
MDH